Hello again, everybody. So this video is for the independent practice for lesson 7.1, and this should be a review for you guys. It's talking about simplifying monomial expressions, which we did right before we all got quarantined. So the review is just to help us get back into the swing of things, and I'm sure, none of us have ever had to do anything like this before. So the review is just to get us used to online learning and work out the kinks. And so a lot of the stuff you're seeing should look familiar, and that's on purpose. So don't get nervous thinking that we lost track, or don't get frustrated because we're doing all the same stuff. If you already remember this material and don't need these videos, you don't have to watch them. They're just there to help you to complete the independent practice on your own. So let's get started going over some examples that will help you with the independent practice for 7.1. And again, it should look familiar. So a little bit. Okay, so just a review of exponents. The exponent is the small number that's a little bit higher than the bigger number. And that is saying how many times the bigger number, or the base, the lower number, is being used in multiplication. So if our base here is x, then, and the exponent is 4, then we are using x in multiplication 4 times. Same thing with 2, okay? And so when we say power, that is usually talking about the base and the exponent combined, but it can also be used interchangeably with the word exponent. So that is what this slide is summarizing. Just if you want to see it in words, the number of times the base is used for exponent, then base, what's in orange, power is the 2 parts, and then the word factor, that is the number, that's the term for the number that's being multiplied to get a certain number, right? So here 2 is our factor that's being multiplied to get this 2 to the 4. So when we say factor, those are the numbers that are being multiplied to get another number. Okay, so the first rule that applies when we are simplifying expressions is product of powers. And so this is basically saying when multiplying powers with the same base, we add the exponents. And so to give you a really brief example and like a little bit where this comes from, so let's say we have 2 to the 2 times 2 to the 4. So if we wanted to write this out, we could write it out as 2 times 2, right? That's this one, times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Right? And so when we are finished, we end up with 6 2s, right? Because we could just write it all in one line. And we can just say that's 2 to the 6th. So if we wanted to save ourselves some time and didn't want to have to write out all of those 2s, then right off the bat, we could have applied the product of powers rule and said, okay, well, I know that I add the exponents whenever I'm multiplying 2 powers with the same base, and that would give me 2 to the 6th. Okay, so now we're going to do an example where we're simplifying an expression that has some exponents and some numbers. And with variables, it's going to be the same thing as we did with the 2's. It's the same process, okay? So your first step that you want to do is you want to write out the coefficients together and then all of the x terms together and all the y terms together. And you'll see why in a second, okay? So first we want to, because we're still multiplying, okay? So we want to write our -4 times our 2 times our x times our x squared times our y times our y times our y cubed. Okay? So you can solve this problem writing out every single exponent and counting them at the end and saying how many you have, or we can do the shortcut that we just learned of the product of powers, and we say, okay, so -4 times 2, we're not involving any exponents in that, that's just multiplication. That's going to be -8, okay? For our x terms, we have x to the 1, right? Because any variable that doesn't have an exponent, the exponent is actually invisible. It's a 1, okay? So we have x to the 1, and it's being multiplied by x to the 2. So if we're doing our product of powers where we just add them, that's just x to the 1 plus 2. And same thing with our y. We have y to the 1 being multiplied by y to the 1 being multiplied by y to the 3. So that would be y to the 1 plus 1 plus 3. So if we simplify this, that's -8 x to the 3 y to the 5. Okay? And if you don't trust yourself, you can always do the check where you write out every single term. So you could always do the x times x times x and the y times y times 3 more y's. And when you count them all up, you would have x to the 3 and y to the 5th. Okay? So that example should be able to get you through all of the similar types of examples that are doing multiplication where you're being asked to use product of powers.